Good afternoon, colleagues.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of all of us present here and our colleagues back in our locations in Africa, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome David Bergvinson, and new Director General, ICRISAT. Let's give a big hand. We also have with us, it's an historic moment as we have recognized that we also have Peter Carberry here with us, who's taken over as Deputy Director General of Research. Let's give them a big hand. It's been a pretty heavy day to start with for both of them, for David as well as for Peter. It's been a jam-packed day, the first half this morning. Half of the colleagues who were present here have had a chance to meet with both of them. The other half will have a chance starting tomorrow morning. The aim is to actually complete the orientation for both of them in between today and tomorrow. Followed by that, there will be a program for both of them to visit our locations. Our colleagues back in Africa are eagerly waiting for both of you to actually make a visit and then talk to them. We are connected virtually through KSIConnect, David and Peter. What we will be doing is we request David to stand closer to the mic so that our colleagues back in Africa will not lose lose the audio. And at the end, we also have a Q&A for the staff. So we will be taking the questions from our colleagues back in the locations, and then we will be passing on those questions to David here. With these few words, I'll not take much time. I now welcome David to address the scientists and managers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharat. And thanks to all of you for your warm welcome to both myself and to Peter Carberry. It is a historic moment. In my recollection, I can't recall a time when a CG Center had both a Deputy Director General of Research and a DG start the same day. But here we are. And we're on a journey. We're on a journey to lift smallholder farmers in the dryland tropics out of poverty by leveraging the very best science and innovation can offer them. And as I said in my interview, I'm very focused on demand-driven innovation, as I know all of you are, because we just came from a meeting with the chickpea research community here with ICAR and ICRISAT. It's very clear that you're focused on what are the needs of smallholder farmers as we both improve varieties but also improve the agronomic practices and market opportunities for smallholder farmers. What excited me when I came to interview at ICRISAT was the framework around inclusive market-oriented development. We're not going to lift farmers out of poverty by just marginally increasing productivity. We need to connect farmers to equitable markets, both men, women, and youth. And I think we see that embodied in all of our research. And so I want to acknowledge especially our teams in Africa, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. Thank you for your hard work there. Ilongwe, Malawi. The Revolving Seed Fund is a tremendous example of innovation around seed systems that ICRISAT has led. Nairobi, Moses and your team, welcome. Addis, this is our most recent office, and it's very exciting, the change that's happening in Ethiopia and how ICRISAT can be a part of that change, especially around chickpea. I think we've made tremendous progress there. When we look at Nigeria, the tremendous opportunity, largest country in Africa, and we have Akin Adesina asking us, the Minister of Agriculture, to come back to the country to help in increasing the productivity and profitability of our mandate crops in northern Nigeria. Mali, another tremendous opportunity for us to really hone our technology around the future climates. So, the kind of research that's being conducted there, as well as Niamey, Niger. All of us working together I think we can not just perform the impossible, we're going to realize a miracle in the dryland tropics with our partners. And some of the things that I really want us to be focused on in the coming month as we prepare for our annual planning meeting is around two things. One, what are the values of our organization? What are the values of us as individuals, but what are the values of ICRISAT that build the kind of the culture that's required of a knowledge innovation institute like ICRISAT? And the second is, how do we look at our country strategies as a vehicle for implementing inclusive market-oriented development and using the value chain framework to stitch together the very diverse interventions that are part of our day-to-day work here, whether that be here in Patanchero or in each of our country offices in Africa. So over the coming weeks, I'm going to ask for your participation in making sure that we're well prepared to have the kinds of critical conversations and discussions that are going to position ICRISAT for success and our partners over the next 5 years. And so you're going to see some emails from me requesting your participation and input so that we make the very best use of our time together at the end of January. I'm looking forward to it, especially because while we have a lot of people in this room, we have a whole team in Africa, and both Peter and I are really excited about hosting the whole team here in Patanchero at the end of January. As I mentioned, I'm very focused on demand-driven innovation, and I want to give a little bit of a story for why I have this passion. When I first started as a young scientist in the CGIR, I started my career at CIMMIT. And after 3 years, I had developed some varieties that I thought, farmers are going to take this up like hotcakes. I mean, these are great varieties, and I'm sure all of the researchers here have similar experiences, whether it be agronomy or social science or crop improvement, that the innovation you have to offer is just going to fly off the shelf. And it was very revealing to me when I took those improved varieties to smallholder farmers and grew them under their conditions, the response I got back. While those varieties increased the productivity by 50, even 100% in some cases over the farmer variety, none of them, 0% of them, were going to adopt those new varieties. And as a young scientist, I was befuddled. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Why wouldn't you adopt this wonderful technology? And it ended up that yield wasn't the primary consideration for those smallholder farmers. They had a secondary use for the maize crop. And I would have never have thought that that was the primary purpose for their production. It was actually, they were selling the husk leaves, the covering of the cob of maize, to make tamales, which is a Mexican dish, a specialty dish, and that was where they made the bulk of their income. Now, had I not gone to farmers and asked for their engagement in designing technology, I would have never figured that out. And as we look at IMOD, and as we look at demand-driven innovation, I think we need to really be thinking through who are our customers and what are the products and services they need to be successful. And so as we come together at the end of January, I want us all to be thinking about that. Whether we're working in ICT, whether we're working in crop improvement, agronomy, social science, we need to come together collectively to integrate our different contributions and actually deliver them at the national level through strategic partnerships. So I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you in that conversation, obviously with Peter Carberry at my side as we charge ahead. I was joking just before we started this conference, and our colleagues at the regional offices, I guess you can't see this the way the camera's pointing, but standing beside me here on the wall is this overburdened donkey with an abundant harvest of chickpea, and this poor farmer trying to prop up the donkey with this huge harvest. And I think that's us right now, because we've got this abundance of opportunity around innovation, but we've got to get it to market. We've got to get this technology into the hands of smallholder farmers. We've got to get technology into the hands of service providers, private sector partners, in order to realize the impact of this technology. Suhaswani, I know you've been very passionate about the science of delivery, and this is another theme that I really want all of us to be thinking about. How do we get all this tremendous innovation to those that need it most? And I really do believe there is a science to delivery and adoption. And I think ICRISAT can be at the vanguard to show how we can actually do this. And to that end, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. When we don't see things working, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves as scientists, why? And be willing to offer constructive criticisms to our colleagues and to receive that from our partners in order to strengthen the organization, to sharpen our research focus, and ultimately to achieve the impact that all of us want to realize. I also want to reassure you that, as I mentioned in my interview in June, I'm very focused on empowering all of you to do your very best for those that we're serving. And I mentioned the book by Vineet Nair about employees first, customer second. Peter and I are both going to work extremely hard to create the enabling environment for you to be successful and for our partners to in turn be successful. And in that regard, I really want to have an open office policy where I want to hear the problems. I want to work with you, along with Peter, along with our leadership team, to solve those problems with you. But we can't bury those problems under the carpet. And so what I want to do is really create a culture here of trust and honesty, where we can look at our research and think critically about how we can improve. We can all improve, including myself. And so I'm going to be looking to you for that kind of input, but also looking to all of you for solutions to those problems. And I really feel that the management team is aligned to realize that kind of environment and that culture. And I look forward to working with all of you to realize the same. I want to also acknowledge the contribution of our families. All of you dedicate yourselves, your passion to the work and the mission of ICRISAT. But you're not doing it alone. Behind all of you, you have a family that's supporting you. And I just want to acknowledge that. That's really important for a research organization like this, especially for our staff that are based in our country offices. And I know for me, it's been a tremendous, I wouldn't be where I am today without the support of my family. And I'm sure the same is true for all of you. So I just want to publicly acknowledge the quiet contributions of all of our families that allow us to do all the good work that we do. I want to end off by, just saying a little bit about myself and how I want to contribute to the mission. I really do want to build on the foundation of success that ICRISAT has had, but I really do want to be a servant leader. You'll see it in my actions, and if you don't see it in my actions, please tell me. But I really feel that we all have a strategic role to play within this organization, but we all have weaknesses, and that's what teams are all about. We are going to boost each other up where we're weak, and we're going to be open and honest enough to contribute to our colleagues and help them be successful. And especially thinking of our younger scientists. The role of mentoring is really important for a knowledge-based organization like ICRISAT. And so for all of you who are our senior staff who have led this institution for the last 43 years or part of it, I really want to encourage and challenge all of you to mentor the next generation of scientists. We're really facing a challenge in agriculture, and it's around youth. We see it in African countries in particular, but we see it in our research organizations globally. Agriculture is an aging industry, and we have to have a rejuvenation of that industry if we're going to have a food-secure world in the future. And so I'm really going to call upon our senior scientists to help in mentoring our young scientists, both within ICRISAT, but within our national program partners and private sector partners. Because you have such a wealth of knowledge, and we want to make sure that we build on that knowledge and carry it forward into the future. So with that, you'll find that I'm a person of few words. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on speeches because I think it's really more important for me at this early stage to do a lot of listening. I really want to hear from you. I have a lot to learn. Probably I have more to learn than Peter, but I think both of us have a lot to learn from all of you. And so I look forward to, over the coming weeks and months, spending time with each of you, getting to understand your work, understand your passion, and understand what we can do together to improve the lives of smallholder farmers in the dryland tropics. Thank you. So I think we have some opportunity to entertain questions, comments. This is sort of an open forum. I'm not going to take a lot of notes here, so maybe there's somebody who can take notes for me. But it's an open forum, including our colleagues in Africa. Yeah, let's use a mic so our colleagues in Africa can hear the questions or comments, please. Don't be shy. You know, I just want to really welcome Peter Carberry. Yeah, you know, I better preempt his question here. You know, I think it's a tremendous privilege and opportunity to have someone of the caliber of Peter Carberry join us as Deputy Director General of Research. He brings a wealth of knowledge of managing research at CSIRO, as well as knowing firsthand. You started your career here at ICRISAT, and it's coming full circle here as you take up this important role as DDG of Research. And so, Peter, I just want to extend my own personal thank you for taking up this challenge, and also thank you to your wife, Anne, for letting you take this challenge.
Thanks, David. Now I have to be nice to you. Yeah, to preempt my question, I also just want to emphasise how humble I am to take on this role and to return to ICRISAT after 30-odd years. So I'm really looking forward to spending time with everybody here and learning more about the research and really signed on to the vision and the passion and the future direction that David is articulating for us. I'm really looking forward to working with David and everybody here. So David, when I came for my interview, I stood there and somebody asked me what I wanted to, what would we want to achieve in the first 100 days? So David, I think I was somewhat flippant and said I just wanted to follow the DG around and see what he wanted to do. So now I can ask you.
Thank you, Peter, for that very kind question. But it's actually a question that I've been giving a lot of thought. And I pointed out, you know, the importance of this planning meeting coming at the end of January. I really want, in that first 100 days, for us to be aligned around values and the kind of organization we want ICRISAT to be in order for us to achieve our mission. So that's one of the things that I want in the first 100 days, is for us to be thinking about our own values as they reflect the values of the Institute, because that's really going to give us the passion and the motivation to do the kind of work we need to do. The second thing that I would like to do in the first 100 days is really align our strategies at the country level. I think IMOD is a wonderful framework, and I'm completely signed up for it. But I think in order to realize that and execute against it, we're going to need country strategies. Those strategies not only map out the constraints along the value chain, but they identify who are our key partners, how can we help our partners be successful, and what are the goals that we want to set within each country for each of our commodities. I don't pretend that we're going to do that in the first 100 days, but I do want us to be started on that journey of defining those strategies. Those strategies will serve multiple purposes. They'll help define the staffing we need. They'll help define the capital resources that we need. And it'll help define the partnerships we need in order to be successful. So those are two things, apart from getting to know everyone here. It's such a small organization that I'm sure I'm going to meet everyone in the first 100 days. No, but seriously, I do have a real commitment to strengthening our work in Africa, and it's my personal commitment. It may not happen in the first 100 days, but it's certainly going to happen in the first 6 months to visit all of our research stations in Africa. Our colleagues in Africa know that I'm committed to supporting all of you to be successful, and please, I look forward to your suggestions and questions for me, is how I can best help all of you. So Peter, it's maybe going to be more than 100 days for some of these things, but those are the 3 priorities for me.
David, there's a question from our colleagues in Bamako. With ongoing changes at CGCRPs, how do you foresee the funding situation at ICRISAT?
So I think our funding situation is going to be very challenging in 2015. I'm just going to put it out there. It's really a call to action. We can't be complacent. Just because we have a passionate mission doesn't mean that resources are going to fall onto our lap. And it's that reason why I think we have to be very aggressive in defining country strategies and building credible plans where we can deliver research results for impact. And so that's why I'm going to work with a sense of urgency to define those strategies with our partners in Africa and here in India. So it's going to be, I think, a constant challenge, but I think if ICRISAT demonstrates and consistently demonstrates its ability to deliver high-quality science that translates into impact in improving the lives of the poor, the financial resources will be there. But I think in the short term, in 2015, we do have serious financial challenges to face, but we're going to face them together as a team and come out the other side victorious. But it's going to take all of us to be successful.
Any more questions from here?
So one thing I want to do is create a culture where we can have conversations and open up questions to even the Director General. So, I would really like to hear from some of our younger staff. What do you expect out of your DG? I really do want to be used as a resource for all of you to achieve your mission. So I'd love to hear from you, or what are your expectations of a Director General? We're in this together. But I also need to, also hear from you about what your expectations and challenges are. I will say, I think, Sharat, we can set up a site where people can email me in confidence. I want to hear, again, what are the challenges we face. I would love to also hear, though, what are the solutions towards addressing those challenges and the willingness of people to contribute towards implementing those solutions. I think for us to be successful, we're going to have to be a very agile, open organization. To the question around funding, that's how we're going to secure the funding, is to be agile, responsive, and to really be a knowledge institute that leverages the very best science to solve the most challenging problems the poorest of the poor face. So, silence out there.
No, we have questions coming from the location.
Oh, great. I'm sure they have a long list of questions for me. Whichever office asks the most questions in Africa, that'll be the office I visit first. Now there's going to be a flood of questions.
Maybe, David, you can articulate a little bit more this science of impact, this science of scaling up. What do you refer to there?
Yeah, so the science of delivery. One thing I learned while at the Gates Foundation, and actually if I reflect on it, I was also learning that during my days at CIMIT, was that we have to be very intentional about the delivery of science. And it starts by defining your market and the needs of the marketplace. But it really came very real for me as I was managing projects like Tropical Legumes 2, where we had to deliver. We needed to demonstrate impact, and Dr. Gowda can testify to some of the pressure we were under. And it was out of that we started thinking about things like seed adoption roadmaps, where we looked at the area that these crops were growing, the constraints within each of those agroecological zones, and the market requirements in order to create equitable or market opportunities for smallholder farmers of those improved varieties. And I think there's a parallel to that for the agronomy world as well. And, I think we see that in Buchatana, for example. And I think ICRISAT has already been working in this direction. I think what we need to do is, if you will, institutionalize that as a way of thinking about our science. and really think about the impact pathway by which that science is going to transform lives of smallholder farmers and consumers, I might say. So, that's sort of the abstract. Now, the nuts and bolts of it are things like seed adoption roadmaps, where, as I described, we're looking at the market, what's required to fill the market, what's our breeding pipeline that's going to fit into that market, and then looking at the partnerships required for scaling up the seed and distributing the seed of those improved varieties. But likewise, we should be thinking about our agronomy interventions. How do we get our agronomy interventions out there? How do we get the interventions of our social science out to policymakers, out to our partners? How do we leverage ICT to scale up? These are all science, delivery science that needs to be thought through. And I think ICRISAT is actually very well positioned to be a leader there, but we have to be intentional about it. So that's what I mean about the science of delivery.
This question from our office in Bamako. We would appreciate your ideas on ways to encourage mentoring. Should I go?
Yeah, well, I think we need to put in place the incentives for mentoring. Mentoring is one, that's rewarding personally, but I think we also have to put in place the institutional incentives to make sure mentoring happens. So that's, two very short answers to it, but, it is really important, and I think, again, as a knowledge institution, it's incumbent on us to make sure that knowledge is passed on to our colleagues and to our partners. And so we want to put in place the incentives and culture, or the values and behavior that's going to support that kind of behavior. Yeah.
There are two more questions now here on the screen. From Malawi, could you elaborate a bit more on how you see country strategies supporting IMOD?
So IMOD, as I look at it, its definition is inclusive-oriented, market development, but it's really inclusive value chains and making sure that smallholder farmers are integrated into equitable value chains. And so what we want to do is use a framework from very basic research all the way through to consumers to make sure that farmers are at the center of that value chain and making sure that what we do is in service of empowering them to access those markets. And so I will be circulating with our in concert with Peter Carberry, a framework for value chain design, which I want us to build on and evolve and use for us to coordinate our work. Because right now there's a lot of great work going on, but understanding how it all fits together to take on a systems intervention is not clear to me. And I think we need a common framework to support us in having both that conversation internally, but also for having that conversation with our partners on the ground here in India and other parts of South Asia, as well as all of our priority countries in Africa.
Many more questions, David. The next one is from Addis. Are there any specific areas in which we can expect major changes in our research and operational strategies?
So I think we're not going to have a radical change in research strategy. What I would call for is more granularity around how we implement that strategy. So the value chain approach, I think, is the right approach. You'll see increasingly more CG centers and CRPs aligning to value chains. I would submit that ICRISAT was one of the pioneers, if not the vanguard of that. But we do need to have intentional plans for delivery and execution. And I think those are skills that both myself and Peter bring as your new leadership team, is really implementing strategies. And I've done that reasonably successfully at the Gates Foundation, and those skills I want to bring here to ICRISAT.
The next question is from our colleagues from Bulawayo. What are your perceptions of resource allocation across the regions?
So I think, just like I'm calling for demand-driven innovation, I want to have demand-driven prioritization of resources, human and financial. And that's why we need robust strategies that are built off of solid data that define what are the needs of each country that roll up into the needs of the region, that roll up into the roll up into the continental needs, whether that be Africa or South Asia. That's what donors are calling for, and I think that's what we need to respond to.
The next question is from our colleagues back in Kano from Nigeria. They're extending a warm welcome to both you and Peter into ICRISAT. Their question is, any plans for expansion of ICRISAT activities in WCA?
Western and Central Africa is a very important region. You know, if I look at the seed sector as an example, the seed sector in Eastern and Southern Africa is 10 times more mature than the seed sector in West Africa. We have huge challenges but also opportunities in West Africa, and I think it's in those most challenging environments where we need to bring the very best innovation to bear to solve those challenges. So I see our activity strengthening in West Africa, and I think Peter and I both have a commitment to work with the team in West Africa to really redouble our efforts in West Africa. In Africa in general, but in West Africa in particular. I'm actually relearning French. That's a symbol of my commitment. Peter is much better at French than I am. But no, West and Central Africa is extremely important for ICRISAT's mission. It already is, but it's going to be increasingly more so.
Any more questions from here? Because the colleagues are typing their questions.
I think I'm going to have to get on a plane tomorrow because the African teams are asking far more questions than the Pat and Shadow team here.
David, you talked about partnerships here.
Oh.
You talked about partnerships. When you look at iMode, we're going to have a diverse set of partnerships with very different objectives. Some could be market-oriented, some could be profits, some could be research. Now, how do you see the challenge of aligning these various partnerships?
So I think, and this is where I've learned a fair amount at the Gates Foundation around building strategic partnerships. It's not a concept that I developed, it was one that IDRC developed around boundary partners. And boundary partners is basically looking at partners and when do they come into the development equation. Another dimension of that is where do they come in along the value chain, which is, you know, the IMOD question. So I really think by having a common framework, it'll help organize our work, it'll help organize and prioritize our partnerships and making sure that we're addressing the needs of our partners for them to be successful. If they're successful, we are successful. And I really think it offers a lot of value by having that structured framework. It was something that I was quite passionate about within the Gates Foundation in promoting structured value chains. And I want to really implement that here at ICRISAT. I don't know if I answered your question, Sir Neves.
There's a question from our colleagues from Niamey.
I'm looking forward for Peter to have this hot seat at some point in time too. So I hope that, you know, in the not so distant future, I think it would really be helpful for Peter to, you know, I mean, in seriousness, come up and entertain questions of our staff, especially, you know, within Africa. So I'm thrilled to have so many questions coming from our African offices.
The next question is from our colleagues in Niamey. Do you have any specific message to send to African locations?
I'm committed to redoubling our efforts in Africa, and the board has approved $5 million to be used strategically to get started on that campaign to strengthen our programs in Africa. That's not going to be enough, but it's going to be a catalyst to get us on the road to realizing that commitment. I think the details of that plan are going to come from our planning session at the end of January, so come prepared.
Hi David, this is Dilip. Hopefully Peter forgot the question who asked him the last time. Okay, David, this question is not regarding the ICT or knowledge sharing, but sometimes when we read the literature of ICRISAT or annual review reports, and even some other papers also, often sometimes our crops has been referred as orphan crops or not highly important crops. So what kind of strategies do you see or do you use to make these crops more attractive, or maybe can attract more funding or more opportunities or more resources?
3 words: climate smart agriculture. In seriousness, as I said during my interview, the mission of ICRISAT is important today. It's going to be more important 10 years from now as we seriously grapple with climate change and malnutrition. And I think that, we haven't sold that well so far, but I'm working looking forward to working with Peter and Joanna's team to really be aggressive in campaigning on the role of our mandate crops as well as our mission of the dryland systems, and making sure that we create awareness of the need, but also the potential that solid science and innovation can offer in addressing those challenges. So, yeah, climate smart agriculture. As you know, Dilip, and as many of you know, the last 2.5 years I actually shifted all of my crop improvement portfolio and focused on digital technology at the request of Bill Gates. And I want to bring that here to both ICRISAT, but also to the CGR more broadly. I think as we look at scaling up innovation, digital technology offers a lot of opportunity for us. It also offers us a way or a vehicle by which to attract youth back into agriculture and make agriculture a commercial enterprise. And so, I think that's another sort of a secondary area, but it's an important area that I think we need to promote. And I think, a lot of the good work that you've been doing, but, many others around the genomics work, for example, is an illustration of the kind of innovation that ICRISAT can offer the rest of the world. So, but, I think as far as a marketing perspective, we really got to get our message out there around climate smart agriculture. So we have a question in the far corner over here.
Okay, David, actually we worked on a couple of value chains here, and this is very good. The thing is, value chains are always generally beyond our traditional capacities of R&D and involves large number of actors and organizations. But in the process, we feel there's always a danger that we also dilute our science here when we focus more on the value chains. So how do you think as an institute we can balance the research and also the value chain?
Yeah, I think I already answered that in part to my question to Srinivas, but it's having a framework and understanding that end-to-end of very basic discovery research all the way through to consumers, and what role ICRISAT plays along that continuum. Doesn't mean we lose our focus. It just means that we're very strategic in how we engage with partners to make sure we deliver the results of science to smallholder farmers and consumers. So, it's really around organizing principles that allow us to prioritize partnerships and prioritize our research to have the maximum impact. But you're correct. You have to watch against, mission creep. But we're not going to be doing this alone. We're going to be doing this through partners. What I'm suggesting is we need a structured framework that allows us to strategically engage with partners and help them be successful. Sorry, there was a question in the corner over here. I think the young lady here in the corner.
Hi, David. I want to ask, what are your views on having a strong control environment processes and its applicability for all? I want to emphasize applicability for all the stuff.
So one thing I want to do, great question, thank you for that, is to do an audit of our policies and processes within the organization. If we're going to be a modern knowledge institution, we have to make sure that we have the policies and processes in place that allow all of us to perform at our very best, to respect the contributions of each other, and to be honest with each other. And so, Peter and I are both new on the job. I think it would be a great way for us to sort of level set and understand where the institution is from a policy and process perspective, and making sure that where we do have gaps that we aggressively address those in order to make sure that ICRISAT is positioned for success. Did that answer your question?
There are two questions from
African locations. The first one is from Bamako. Could you please elaborate on how you would create a conducive environment in African locations?
So a conducive environment. As I mentioned, I really do want to empower our staff to do their very best. Our African environments are very challenging, especially West Africa. As I mentioned, not only, some of the infrastructure and human capacity challenges we face, but superimposed on this has been Ebola, for example. And I know that this is top of mind for Peter as well, is how do we manage risk and make sure that our staff are safe and able to perform at their very best. I don't pretend to have all of those answers right here, but I do want to work with our team in Africa to make sure that we're addressing their concerns and creating the enabling environment for them and their partners to be successful. So it's going to be a journey, but it's one that Peter and I are taking on collectively, and it will get our attention. Probably should have been one of my top 3 first 100-day kind of achievements, but that it will. I really do want to set aside some time during our annual planning meeting to talk to our colleagues in Africa, and this will be one of the topics that we'll discuss further.
Yeah, the next question is from Bulawayu. You spoke about re-evaluating the values of ICRISAT as an organization. In your opinion, and from what you have seen so far, what do you think are some of the values that we have got right, and what do you think is missing?
I was hoping that they would answer that question. I don't really want to preempt that because, I honestly do want to hear the perspective of all of you. I will say ICRISAT has done a good job with partnerships, but we can always improve. So emphasis on partnerships is part of the values that I really want to emphasize. They're there, but I think they can be strengthened. I think one thing that I'd like to change is a culture and value that allows us to have open and critical conversations in a constructive manner. I think as scientists, we don't take rejection very well. When something fails, we really do take it personally, and we shouldn't. We should take it as feedback on how to improve, and that is a value that I hope we can instill over time. I don't think we're there right now, and it's one thing that I would really like us to work collectively towards as a shared value across the institution.
There's one more question from Malawi. What's your picture for creating strategic alliances to assure science to delivery/adoption that you have spoken about?
Sorry, I missed the first part of that, Shrek.
What's your picture for crafting strategic alliances to assure science to delivery adoption that you have spoken about?
Well, it comes back to that value chain framework I keep repeating. Obviously, I haven't repeated it enough. I think having that framework allows us to be very intentional around what are the constraints science can address, what are the partnerships required for delivering both the innovation as well as the delivery of those solutions to smallholder farmers, as well as what are the key enabling environment or constraints that we need to address with our partners on the ground. And I think in the absence of that framework, we run the risk of keep repeating, trying to solve the same problem without making progress against it. So I really think that there's an opportunity for us to use a structured value chain framework to move systematically towards the delivery of high quality science and products and services that stem from that.
There's the next question from Kano in Nigeria. How do you plan to address CG Institute's competition or collaboration vis-a-vis science delivery in CRPs?
Yeah, this is a great and complex question. I guess I could get a bonus if I can answer this one. But in seriousness, I see the opportunity for us, just like I'm talking about us bringing our comparative advantage as individuals to achieve the mission of the organization. I see there's opportunity for us to look at our sister centers and our national program and private sector partners strategically contributing towards collective goals. I think the way in which to do that, or at least one vehicle, again, is this structured value chain approach. It's dialogue with our partners and building that relationship with them. I believe that some of those relationships are challenged. I need to work aggressively in building that trust and those relationships with our colleagues in other centers. But I do believe that if we're really focused on improving the lives of smallholder farmers, I've used that as my North Star to negotiate some very complex relationships, and I have been quite successful at it. I think if our sister centers share that view, we will find a way to sort out our challenges and deliver solutions.
The next one is more of a comment than a question here, David. We look forward to ICRISAT management's interpretation of the term dialogue so that we can really have science with a human face. It's more of a comment.
Great. I agree.
Any more questions from here? Yeah.
We talk of malnutrition, food security, nutrition security and all these things. But then what we see is that you need to bring about a change in the diets of the people. That's what is going to improve the situation, especially in terms of nutrition. Now our results from our village level studies show that there's no improvement in the diets. The diets continue to be, there's no diversity at all, in fact zero diversity. So my question to you is, do you think that ICRISAT should also play a role in bringing about a behavior change? Because that's one of the things that I see is very important.
Yeah, this is really important, behavior change. When we talk about adoption, adoption is behavior change. When we talk about nutrition, I think this is really an opportunity for us to be thinking how our work on gender is integrated in the design and delivery of technology. Nutrition is really important in that domain, and I think ICRISAT can be, again, at the vanguard of that thinking. And this is actually one of the reasons that I was very motivated to apply for this position. Many of you know my background. I'm a maize scientist. Maize is a wonderful crop. It can do a lot. It can't do everything. We need diversification of our food system, not only from a nutritional perspective, but also from a food security perspective. And so I think ICRISAT does need to, again, create more awareness around the role of diversification, the role women play in making decisions within the household around nutrition, and the kinds of incentives and messaging we need to create that behavior change. I'm going to start asking you guys questions if you don't ask me anymore. And I have some hard questions. No more from our offices?
No more from offices.
Well, I would just like to close off one by thanking all of ICRISAT for their warm welcome to both myself and Peter. This has been an incredible 2 days. Actually, it's not even over, our second day. Our first day was spent with our host and very important partner, ICAR, as we looked at the different CGIAR programs within India. It was a day well spent. It's like getting our first day twice. We had our first day at ICAR with ICAR, and then our first day here at ICRISAT in Patanchero. Peter and I are going to have our first day at each of our country offices as well, and I'm looking forward to that day as well. We're on a journey, as I mentioned at the beginning. You know, this poor overburdened donkey with this abundant harvest of chickpea. I think we have an abundant harvest of innovation and talent here. But what we do need to do is think collectively of how do we get that innovation to market. And I think collectively we can do that with our partners. I firmly believe that we need to have underpinning and shared values that allow us to achieve that. And collectively, we can do tremendous things in service of improving lives of literally hundreds of millions of the poorest of the poor. I know Peter shares this sentiment, that, this commitment that we're really excited about the journey ahead. It's going to be very rewarding. It's going to be very challenging at times, but together we can do it. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. For the benefit of our colleagues from the locations, we will be, we have recorded this session, and we will be uploading the video, and then we'll be sharing the link with our colleagues. In between, we have lost link at least with 2 locations. Apologies, and we will be sharing the link for our colleagues to view this. Once again, on behalf of all my colleagues present here and in the locations, once again a warm welcome to both of you. And David and Peter, we are looking forward to meeting with you again tomorrow with half of the colleagues who are present here. And with that, I would like to thank again all of you for having made time to be present here. Thank you very much and good day.